name is Bryan Carter, and I serve as a senior pastor of the Concord Church. I want to talk to you about success for the succession pastor. The succession pastor is any pastor that follows another pastor. It can be in a ministry, it can be on a staff, it can be as a senior pastor. Everyone won't plant a church. There are many that will walk into a ministry that has already been led previously by someone else. And so I want to share with you 3 principles that can help you to have success in this context. First of all, a little bit about my story. I joined the staff on which church I now lead in 2000. And after in 2002, the senior pastor at that time and the church called me to be the assistant pastor as well as his successor designee. In 2003, he passed. So I became the pastor of our current church. When I became the pastor, I didn't just succeed your average pastor, but the pastor that I followed was a pastor with not only a national reputation, but even an international reputation. God had blessed him to grow this church from 230 members to over 2,000 members. God had allowed him to be known as one of the leading expositors in the country. He was a tremendous pastor, preacher, leader, and visionary. And so for 28 years, he served at this church. And now me, 29 years old, I walk into this church and have to now leave them after they've seen a phenomenal leader by the name of Dr. E.K. Bailey. And so that's kind of the context that I walked in. And over these past 6 years, I've learned a number of lessons. 3 of those I want to share with you today. The first one is to learn to live with a shadow. So many times when a pastor comes in, he immediately wants to erase much of what has already been there prior to. But one of the greatest mistakes you can do is to do that. Instead, a pastor must learn how to walk with grace and humility and honor for the legacy that's already there. You can never fight your predecessor. You can never try to overcome or outdo your predecessor. Instead, you must learn to honor what God did through that person in the time and in the season that it happened. So that's one of the first principles. Learn how to honor that legacy without trying to tear it down, because you're not in competition. You're answering your call, not competing. Not only learn to live with the shadow, but number 2, learn to be yourself. When I came into this position, I was 29 years old, pastoring a mega church at the time. And as I grew in that role, one of the struggles was to try to be like my predecessor or to try to be like those pastors that I admired. I found myself trying to emulate them more than about being who I am. That's what you do when you're in your 20s. When you're a young leader, sometimes trying to franchise someone else's ministry to make it yours. But what I've discovered in life is that if God wanted you to be a carbon copy of another person, he would have made a carbon copy. Instead, he made you because he wants you to be unique. He wants you to use your passion, your personality, your gifts, your talents, your background to impact God's people in your season. Never try to be someone that you're not. Never try to pretend. Instead, be true to who you are and be what God has called you to be. Be yourself. And then number 3, learn to be patient. Oh, I know that's a tough one. That's one of the difficult ones on me, is that I don't know about you, but I can see what God is doing, and I'm always waiting for people to catch up. And it frustrates me. You know, I want it now. I want it to happen. I know it's God's plan. I have to understand that many times my timing wasn't God's time. And it takes a long time for transition to happen. And whether you followed someone that was great in terms of the leadership like me, or whether you follow someone that may have had a moral failure, it doesn't make a difference who you follow. People need time. They need time to heal because they're grieving over their prior leader. They need time to get to know you. They need time to deal with the transition. And so give people time. Never expect transition to happen real quickly. But if you give time, I've often heard it said it takes 5 to 7 years for a person to become the pastor. Oh yeah, you may have the title and you even may preach every Sunday, but you're really not their pastor until you've walked them through some situations, until you've been with them over a season of time, 5 to 7 years. And after that time, if you've loved those people and preached to those people, they will then allow you to lead them. And that's what it takes. It takes time. Don't get in a hurry. Instead, trust God. I mean, consider this, that yes, it may take a few years, but in the grand scheme of things, you've got 20 years, 30 years in ministry. So why try and make it happen overnight? 3 principles to guide you. Number 1, learn to live with the shadow. Number 2, be yourself. And number 3, be patient and let God do it as opposed to trying to make it happen all by ourselves. Those are the 3 principles I give you from my own life journey. I've been serving now for 6 years. God has blessed our church immensely. God has grown our church. God has expanded our ministries. But it's all because of the fact that we've learned how to live with that shadow. I've learned how to be myself. And I've learned to trust the Lord and be patient in His timing. Enjoy and God bless.